Mr. Glover. And, well, you had the response of...
Oh, well, Meduji and Didon, they've made their point, but I think that you don't need to falter Alan too much. He
Why?
came to give his vision why he wants to lead the NPP, and subsequently when he goes through the primaries and becoming a flag bearer, that is what he came to share with the NPP particularly. But from where I sit, I felt that he should have focused more on the NPP delegates.
You think he went beyond?
Sincerely, when you ask my opinion,
What makes you draw that conclusion?
I felt that he should have waited a bit to go through the primaries successfully, and if he's giving the nod, then you come and share your larger vision that you want to have as a flag bearer and why you want to be the president of the republic. But everybody and his style, the way he does his things. So he felt that this is what he could communicate to Ghanaians for us to see him more. But I can tell that, let's say that, yes, he has done well as a trade minister, no doubt about that.
He has?
No doubt about that. He has done well as a trade
Which of the
minister
camps
today.
are you? Baumia, Alang?
Stop your
He had
mischief.
decamped.
Stop your mischief. This 2023, these your mischief things.
I've been
You
come
have
today.
Do you understand? So clearly, there is a need for us to listen more of all the potential flag bearers that we have. I.e., he has come to share his with us. Subsequently, we'll be hearing what is coming from the Vice President, Dr. Osu Ifri Yakoto, Kennedy Jepong, Wache Jaku, and
Kojo Poku.
Kojo Poku. I've not even seen any of our MPP, what do you call it? Any of our-
Does he have a constituency?
Yes, he has.
He has a constituency.
I've not even seen him in any of our.
And then
He's
Dr.
the
Kuredu
youngest amongst them.
You know,
The
Dr.
more
Kuredu
visionary
Appetit is
amongst
there.
them.
Is that I should come and Kojo called me?
You
He
need
said,
to
is that
join-
senior, please come and help me.
Yeah, you
Come and
need
part
to-
of my
And
team.
you need to help him.
So
You need to
clearly,
help
clearly, Joe Gate and Adanimo and all of them, Kobre Jepong, they're all fantastic guys. But at the end of the day, the super delegates will put the number down to about 5. They will look at the way forward.
Okay. There's a key issue we wanted to discuss this morning, and let's just use 7-10 minutes to quickly do that. It's about the Vice President's led policy of exchanging gold for oil. And according to the announcement, next week we're going to have the first consignment arrive. You're an industry player with COPEC, so I know that which day should we expect it if we want to corroborate what the Vice President is saying?
Well, Roland, J for O, or gold for oil, as it's been termed, we've had the benefit of some presentations done to us to explain what the government intends to do with that program. I can put unequivocally on record that on paper it is very, very positive. I would explain the concept briefly. What the government is seeking to do is to take away the forex pressures. The BDCs alone within the forex space would need between 300 to 400 million USD monthly to import petrol diesel for you and I to consume locally. That forex pressure would also lead to escalations in your, forex rates, because there's always that amount of pressure where one of the players each week is looking for $25 million. That's a lot. And so if they need to be mopping up money from the banking system each week to that tune, so it means that a week within the BDC or the fuel importation space alone, you are doing almost 100 million USD each week, right? No amount of forex would suffice, within the banking setup to cater to those demands. And so, as a country, there's a decision taken to move away from allowing the BDCs now to go to the open market to source for the dollars at a rate that the market itself will determine. Now, what the J4O is doing, the structure that presentations we saw with NPA and BOST particularly, the structure being created is this. There's a Bank of Ghana, which is the financier, right, with a precious mining minerals, PMMC, who precious minerals mining, who trades in the gold resource, right? So Bank of Ghana gives the city money to PMMC to buy the gold. Now PMMC holds the gold. Then we get an intermediary, right? Which is for now what we have heard, a Dubai company who probably sits on a couple of billions, right? To fund the importation of the petrol diesel that comes in country. And so instead of the BDCs now going to the local banks to mop up the dollars, that Dubai intermediary now would pay the oil trader who is bringing the oil down and take the gold.
Okay, so the OMC, where do they make their supplies? Or
the BDCs.
Who do they mix? Okay.
So BOST more or less becomes
their supply request. Did they send it to the Dubai company?
So the oil trader, who is probably the supplier of oil to your country, in this instance, you are looking at British Petroleum, you are looking at Trafigura, Vitol, Glencore, and the likes, right? Those traders who supply cargo to your country would now have to be paid by the intermediary from an offshore account. The intermediary trades gold and oil at the same time. So he is able to take your gold and then be able to, pay for the oil that you have imported, such that it doesn't become pressure on the country. And BOST, I'm told, has also been nominated to hold the product for the country and sell. As novel and as good an initiative as this would sound on paper, there seems to be some questions that we probably need answers to.
Which are?
One, if it is the vice president that is leading or fronting all of this, there need to be absolute transparency. Roland,
you don't trust
initially the word that was being used was butter, but in our interactions with them, we told them to depart, because if you stick with butter anywhere is not about equity. Ro, I have a watch, it could be worth $10,000. I need maybe a bag of water. That's my need, immediate need. I could trade the watch for your bag of water. There's nothing about equity with butter. So they say, okay, fine. They can run away from the butter debate and say that an exchange program. Now, that exchange, the model for trading gold for oil, you deal with a certain values between 5 and 30, depending on the value of gold at the time you are trading. So it leaves you a very wide gap, right? And that wide gap could be subject of manipulation if we are not clear with our numbers. If you left it to the technical guys, like the traders within our space, they would be able to implement this policy and the country will get the benefits. But once you get people in there to take decisions that may not be purely economic, right?
Politically
exposed persons to take certain decisions would simply be exposing our gold resource further for people to probably rip us off. I have asked the intermediary, right? What charges is he taking from us, right? How many ounces of gold?
You got to the intermediary.
No, I am asking the policy implementers, right, to be absolutely transparent. If the vice president would
at what rate?
At what rate?
Is it going to be hedged?
Exactly. You would need those dynamics clearly out there. If already a consignment of oil is expected, then it means that you have done the finer details. Publish that or put that out there.
We're is next week, and you are worried.
We should be worried, because for how much? And I have heard some government communicators alluding to the fact that affordable oil or cheaper oil is coming. Roland, as of my checks last night, the numbers are not even available for you to determine what consignment is coming, at what FOB rate, at what exchange, variation we are probably going to price for. Yet, people are going ahead to communicate to say that we are bringing cheaper fuel because of gold for oil exchange. If we are not careful, we'll get bent. And so we would only caution that a lot of restraint, a lot of numbers, right, be dealt with on paper to be definitely sure that whatever trading we are going into with this Dubai intermediary is one that will make the oil, one, reliable, two, affordable, and then three, you'll be able to deal with the forex pressures that the country is seeking to do.
Eduji, we've had some bad experiences the last 6 years. PDS, we've had Japan, and somebody will even call this one a Japan Pro Max. I'm even getting that on my. But the thing is that within the narrative, the construct should be at what exchange or hedging price are we getting this? How much of oil will go in within a certain consignment over what period of time? And looking at the volatility of our forex market in relation to how our economy has performed or where we are currently, should there be fears? And at what point should the communication be coming?
Okay, so you see, the truth of the matter is, if today you believe anything that Baumia is fronting, then Baumia is not the problem, but you. You get me?
Why?
If at this critical situation,
Why shouldn't I believe anything Baumia says?
first of all, the man says first consignment will arrive next week. Have you seen any paperwork?
Not yet.
Numbers.
And you are believing it. Look, first of all, per our constitutional architecture, if you have an international business transaction, does it not require at least an input from Parliament?
True.
What is the nature of this particular transaction? Even the Sino-Hydro transaction that he, Baumia, championed and called butter. Today, time has exposed Baumia, and you see the shamelessness with which he operates. If Baumia were to be anybody, by now he should be apologizing to Ghanaians. You told the people of this country that you were bringing a novelty, a better trade arrangement with our bauxite, right? And that when the minority insisted that it was a law,
10 billion.
he said, no, it is not. It's a better novelty, like they are saying now. What has become the result? Do you know that the Sino-Hydro monies from June this year, we are beginning to pay the money? We have not set up a bauxite factory. We don't have anything. We have not set up an escrow account. So now the money is now part of our public debts. How did we get here? Look, the kind of lies these people will tell you, you will sell your mother. And you see, the unfortunate thing that I'm seeing is that you are claiming that you have a transaction that you are going to use your gold for a certain oil, right? How much of gold do you produce monthly? Because this whole oil for gold transaction has become an issue simply because government is having difficulty mobilizing forex for the BDCs. So the solution Akufo-Addo has to our problem is always ad hoc. It's always ad hoc. No deep thinking. I am asking you, you are a senior journalist. Have you seen any paperwork on the modalities, the form of this particular transaction? Okay. No. Your representative, my senior here, used to be an MP. The representatives of the people, do they even have a working arrangement, what it is going to look like? What are the default clauses? What interest, what foreign exchange, numbers are we going to use for? Nothing. All they are doing is to parrot next week, first consignment. So they create a certain expectation in people. And then, boom. First of all, the deregulation of the petroleum sector was an introduction by the Kufuor administration when they came out with MPA. In the past, if you recall, petroleum prices were, determined when budgets are presented. When we were growing up, if Mr. Richard Kwan-Pepra comes to present the budget, you announce the petrol prices then.
Oh, Kwesi
Botwe. So when Mr. Kufuor came, then they brought the National Petroleum Authority Act, the deregulation, of the entire process, and now said the bringing of petroleum product, government of Ghana,
contravening that?
yes, government of Ghana should take its hands off and allow private participation. So NPA does the licensing. Now let me ask, this Qatari or
Right.
Kuwaiti or Dubai, whoever the person is, what form of licensing has been given to him? What role is he playing in the whole downstream sector?
Finance.
Thankfully, when I was doing my law, my elective was natural resource law. And one of the things that we did with the downstream is that all of them have categorization. What is the role of BOST in this whole transaction? BOST was created as a security agency so that strategically it stores certain oil for the Republic for security reasons. What role is it going to play today? So everything is ad hoc. I mean, what kind of government is this? How did we get here? All because you have mismanaged the forex market. And you see, Bamia in opposition, when he used to organize the various lectures at Central University, I don't know why now the university, Central University, even for the sake of your credibility, I think one of these days you need to organize a lecture for Bamia to come and tell us how he brought Ghana here. I'm just, even for the sake of their credibility. But back to the issue.
What do you mean by how he brought Ghana here?
Oh, that's mess. But you see, for me, what I want all of us to look like, don't build any meaningful expectation on this first consignment next year. Government of Ghana has this month. Government of Ghana has a responsibility through the Bank of Ghana to ensure the stability of our destiny. Look, in the past 6 years, how were we getting finished products into the country? How were we doing it? There were BDCs. There is a whole chamber.
Yeah, but we're not in normal times. That's the reality. Our forex
So
has not
I
been
am
doing too
saying
well. So
that.
this is why it's supposed to be a
so I
makeshift
am
measure.
saying that, Roland, under no circumstance should you elevate an ad hoc program and make it look like the panacea to the problem. How much?
Energy, shouldn't you rather be asking or assessing whether this one rather is an initiative to ensure that we show up our forex
I have the benefit
volatility?
I have the benefit of what Sino Hydro has become. They told us, Bamia championed it, and said with Sino Hydro, instead of using hard currency to service our debt, this time around we'll use our bauxite, we'll process it, create an escrow, and then use the money to service. As I speak, we have not even started mining the bauxite, let alone create a refinery, let alone an escrow account, let alone service it. So now, they are going to use your taxpayers' money to service the Sino Hydro transaction. That is how ad hoc thinkers plunge countries into debt. Terrible.
Within the meaning of Article 1815 of the 1992 Constitution, it requires that all international business or economic transactions...
Are they saying this one is not?
To which, well, it will be up for debate. For me, you look at the initiative is to ensure that, well, we don't tend to use the dollar where we have to go and mop up the city and to go and be making those supplies. So that, by way of the intent, is a good one. But the now questions about whether this needs to go to Parliament, whether we have a grand plan of what the key numbers issues are, and we have industry people asking these questions. How should government be responding to this?
Thank you, Roland. I think that the least opportunity that the NDC will have is to try to punch the Vice President so hard. So I'm not surprised of what the DG is trying to demonstrate here this morning. So that is what you are good at. The deregulation, I recall during the days of Kwesibuche, Kwame Prepare and others, you could realize that government was subsidizing most of this fuel that we consume, if you recall. And that was when we came to power under President Kufuor. We need to take them off the back of government to allow the private sector to come into and allow market forces to determine the pricing of this fuel that we consume at the pump. Now, this novelty of gene for O for gene and all that, like they don't say, that was trying to see how best we can get ourselves off this forex. Because I have listened to him a couple of times in the peak of this pricing of the fuel at the pump. At the point in time, he was saying that you even mentioned $450 million a month that the BDCs have to look around to generate this money. If this your studio is the vote of the Bank of Ghana, a month to generate about between $400 to $450 million, you cannot do it. Therefore, how do you look around to see how you'll be able to raise cheaper fuel, that can come into the country for consumption and all that. During the Christmas festivities, the diesel dwindled as low as 11 cents, 11.8, 11.9, thereabout.
Yes.
So this morning when I was coming from the airport towards 37, Goyle, Shell and Total, the diesel was I think about 14.6, and the petrol or super was about 12.4%. Yes. That I saw. So essentially, what we're trying to do is that what you do to get ourselves, let the city rest a bit, because the city is looking around looking for the dollar, so that these BDs will be able to get these forex to go and import these products into the system. So clearly, essentially, that is what they are looking at to deal with that problem. Then also, how we can also have a cheaper price of the fuel at the pump, because I've been here. You see here, Duji and other people. Baumia and Akufo-Addo are insensitive, so incompetent and all that, and we are struggling and all that, and the price at the pump has risen us to 23 cedis a liter. That was quite high. So what do we do to bring some respite to our people? So I think that for what they have done, we have been told that next week we are expecting the first consignment to come. My concern I want to look at is the sustenance of this arrangement. You understand? The Don was telling us they had some discussion with I'm sure it's about the energy ministry, CSO, and all that, so that at least they'll get the feedback, input of players. I remember the last time we talked about this matter, you called Kojo? You remember? Ro. You invited Kojo to speak.
You should be his campaign manager
to speak on this matter, and his worry.
Has he given you a message?
Don't mind Kojo. And Kojo was saying that. Can I finish?
Okay.
Bro, I beg you.
He gave me a message.
Kojo, don't mind. Kojo was saying that the intention is not bad, but he felt that the players in the industry must meet at round table so that everybody can make an input as to how we can sustain this initiative, this novelty that is coming up. For me, it is good, but the sustainability of this initiative, what I'm looking at. Then also, I'm told that the Chamber of Mines, Government of Mines Chamber of Mines, has a number of gold that can be produced in exchange, because the Bank of Ghana will buy it in cities, then they exchange it with the oil and look at all that is going to go. As to the Article 1815 of the Constitution that talks about the involvement of Parliament, it's an interesting transaction. So I am not a lawyer. Maybe you can educate us a bit, so that we don't know the terms that is going into it. But whatever it is, an international arrangement. It's an international transaction.
But senior titles.
So
you are a senior. You are a senior
please,
communicator.
Please. Eduji.
Okay, very well.
Young man.
So I think that when Parliament resumes, it is not late.
First consignment.
It's not late. They can still involve Parliament, the Finance Committee, a joint committee of Parliament, the Finance and Energy, to look at it, so that at least Parliament will have an input as to what exactly what we are doing, because it's for the general good to make sure that the products are coming.
Okay.
But I will not take this away. You know my position on Tema refinery, because we are Tema guys. I've said this before. We can be doing this alongside, because growing up in Tema, what I know is that TOR normally will produce within the 12 months, but they will leave 1 month to do what they call shutdown maintenance. The shutdown maintenance, and by the time the fuel continue to dwindle in their tanks, they give opportunity to these BDCs to import the fuel to supplement or to augment what they have in their tanks. I think that I know the Ministry of Energy has reached a deal with the private investor to partner Tema Refinery. Recently, there was some money that was spent to service the boiler, the crude distillation units, and all that, all because they want the refinery to come to stream. I believe that when the refinery is working actively, some of these things maybe we can move away from that and help us to let it flow.
That is why I'm saying that this whole thing, first of all, is hard work. But you see, I was asking a question, my senior here. You speak for government at the senior level. Even you, as we speak, you have not seen any documentation on numbers. So it becomes difficult even for you to communicate what exactly are the details of such a policy initiative beyond the sloganeering. And I'm saying that when you put PR in front of government...
What do you mean by that PR? It's an initiative first to make sure that the volatile city...
No, but you see, even between the two of you, senior journalist, senior government communicator, you do not even have the...
Your mischief will kill you.
You've not had the benefit of seeing anything in terms of details. So what exactly are you communicating?
And like... are we not putting the cat before the horse?
Wait. No, Roland.
Hold on.
I'll ask you that, please. You're an industry person.
See, we've had history where in this country, ministers have openly confessed, signing agreements that they never understood or something. Or
give us examples.
I beg you. No starting initiatives that they never had the benefit of even knowing the minute detail. We've had a situation where in this country, an Ameri-Novation agreement was taken to Parliament. A joint memorandum was signed by Finance and Energy Committee, but for the minority intervention, this country was going to be fleeced by $800 million, but for the vigilance. So it is always fair. And if you read all the Supreme Court cases on Article 1815, 1815, the position of the court has always been, if you allow Parliament the opportunity to have a look into the agreement, what it does is that one, it ensures accountability. It ensures probity. People have the benefit of giving superior ideas that possibly your mind. But you see, this government have this Kwekwananse mindset. We know it all. We'll do it in our bedroom. Then they start, then there's a backlash, then they pull.
Okay.
We should stop it.
Let me give you the icing on the cake. You look at Article 1815. They've met you as industry people. You're telling me you're not too clear with the numbers. Now, there's a hanging issue about whether we need to go to Parliament for an initiative like this, because there's a policy for deregulation and all that following that MPA Act and the initiatives thereof. How do we make sure that in terms of these probing questions you're asking us, the industry people, I'm talking about oil and gas, you get the right responses? And what sort of responses do you want?
You see, Roland, there's been this confusion as to whether 181 applies or not. But let me explain.
You mean even within your circle you thought about it?
Yes, we do. If it was just purely a transaction that did not involve the Bank of Ghana, and it was just a matter of taking the BDC job to a trader to bring the oil, and then another company would pay, and Bank of Ghana were not going to commit funds, then it wouldn't have needed Parliament. But per the little we discussing here, once Bank of Ghana is going to advance monies to PMMC to buy the gold from the miners, right? There's public funds involved. And once there's public funds involved in a transaction of any sort, you might necessarily need to go to the people's reps. So 181 is likely to apply here simply because it's becoming more of a government, right? A government-led initiative. It is not the private business person committing private funds, right? That has nothing to do with the public purse. Once BOG is getting involved, and that is why I earlier reiterated that, Roland, you would need the numbers to be clear, right? How much exactly is BOG putting into PMMC, right? Of that amount, how certain are we that the miners are not going to come back to the forex space, right? If Bank of Ghana is putting 400 million USD, equivalent in cedi, to PMMC to buy gold from the miners. How confident, in order that we don't now have to use the money to go looking for dollar, how confident do we get that the miners who take the 400 million USD equivalent in cedi will not come back to the same open market chasing the dollar? Bro, do you get where the query comes? So I don't want the BDCs to go chasing 400 million USD, right, from the market, so as to put pressure on the forex to depreciate, the cedi to depreciate. So I'm printing
because the reality
manage.
is that
You see,
because the reality is
Duncan simply doesn't want to say
let me
that
land.
government of Ghana has a responsibility to stabilize the cedi.
Let me land. You see, the challenge there, if 400 million USD equivalent is, let's say, 4 billion Ghana cedi, and you give that money to PMMC to buy the gold, if that 4 billion, even 2 billion come back chasing the dollar, the exchange rate problem would continue to persist.
Is it your assumption as industry people that when you give cedis to miners, they'll want to go and buy dollar for what?
Bro, if you have a certain currency whose value, real-time value, is shaky, the most obvious thing for some of these multinationals and local mines to do is sometimes just to do their conversion, and naturally that might happen. The answers we got was that, look, we've spoken to the mines and we are aware that this money can be used for their OPEX, operational expenses, right? How much of that can go into their OPEX? Would they spend 4 billion each month on operational expense? If they don't, would they come back to the forex market to put further pressure on the cedi? If that happens, then the policy would have failed, right before it even gets started. Then again, the issue of numbers, there's oil coming. What conversion rate are we going to use to price the oil? Is it the same cedi dollar? If it is a cedi dollar, what rate are we going to use? Is it the BOG rate, which is 8, or we are going to use the open market, interbank rate? If it is the interbank rate, then the price you have on the market now would not change.
Okay.
If it is the BOG rate, you may be lucky because BOG has a certain contrived rate that it puts on the cedi exchange to the dollar. Roland, there are a lot of answers that would need to be provided, and those answers would have to come in the form of numbers so that people can interrogate.
There should be a document.
And be sure
We should
that
be
what we are
working
going
with
to do will
document.
not burn all of us. Anything other than this, we need to be cautious.
A government that is, you see, and you see, Roland, a government that doesn't operate with papers, fear them.
A legal
They don't want to work.
member of the NDC's legal team. And then former Deputy Minister of Transports is right here, a former Member of Parliament for Tema East, and Titus Glover, the Honorable Titus Glover. Thank you for passing through. And the two of you, we're taking a break. We'll be right back with more right here on the show. Now, let me just also say congratulations to Staff Sergeant Cecilia Pia of Base Supply Depot, the Ghana Air Force. You just got newly appointed. Good promotion. And we right here on TV3 New Day are congratulating you. We're taking a break. We'll be right back.